Have you ever wondered why religion, which was the pillar of our civilization for thousands of years, no longer seems to have the same power over our lives? In a world where science and reason dominate our thinking, what remains of those myths that once explained the universe and gave meaning to our existence? Today, we will uncover how ancient beliefs, which were essential for the survival of our ancestors, have gradually lost their place in a society now guided by logic and knowledge. But beyond that, we will explore something even more intriguing. What if I told you that the true battle between religion and science is not over yet? I invite you to join me on this journey, where we will unravel how humanity, over the centuries, has challenged its own understanding of the world and how that challenge has led us to question what we thought we knew. This video will not only discuss history and science, but will also make you reflect on your place in the universe. Stay until the end, because what you will discover will change the way you see not only religion, but also the power that knowledge has to transform the world. At the dawn of humanity, when human beings still did not understand the natural phenomena occurring around them, the world was a place full of uncertainty and mystery. Every natural event, from the falling rain to the rising sun, seemed to be governed by invisible forces that early societies could neither comprehend nor control. The absence of immediate answers to these fundamental events led our ancestors to seek explanations beyond the tangible, and it was in that empty space that myths were born. Living in a world where changes in the climate, seasons, or the appearance of stars in the sky affected daily life required more than just observation, it required interpretation. To early humans, natural forces were not merely phenomena, but manifestations of something greater, something transcendent. And as they were unable to understand the reasons behind natural events, they began to give them form and purpose. Myths, then, were born not only to explain the inexplicable, but also to provide people with a sense of control, or at least a way to interpret it. Rather than seeing storms as mere weather changes, the ancients believed they were signs from the gods or even manifestations of their wrath. Lightning bolts striking from the sky were considered the fists of Zeus or Thor, the thunder gods of Greek and Norse mythology, respectively. These stories not only provided explanations for natural events, but also offered a pathway to understanding the world, giving meaning to what would otherwise be chaotic and unpredictable. Thus, gods began to personify the natural forces that humans could not comprehend. The Greeks and Romans, for example, imagined that the sea was ruled by Poseidon, the god of the oceans, and that war was a manifestation of Ares' destructive power. Similarly, the Egyptians saw the Nile River not only as a source of life, but as a channel of Osiris, the god of fertility and resurrection, whose death and rebirth explained the cycle of the seasons and the river's flooding. In pre-Columbian civilizations like the Maya and the Aztec, gods were also intertwined with cosmic phenomena. The Maya, for instance, believed that planetary movements, the rising and setting of stars, and even eclipses were acts of the gods maintaining the balance of the universe. The cycles of life and death, both in nature and in human society, were seen as a constant interaction between the divine and the earthly. This connection between nature and the divine not only responded to the need to understand phenomena, but also served a crucial social function. Myths, by explaining the order of the world, also dictated how society should behave. Humans were not merely spectators of the universe. They had to align themselves with the cosmos and divine laws to live in harmony with the world. These narratives provided rules that went beyond mere survival. A moral code extended into social coexistence, and the relationship between humans and gods defined the order and structure of society. The first human communities, which initially lived in small and scattered tribes, saw myths as a way to unite their members, a shared belief that transcended individual differences and brought everyone together. Religious ceremonies, festivals, and ritual practices, such as the sacrifice of animals or other precious offerings, were not only meant to please the gods, but also to strengthen collective identity and solidarity within the group. Sacrifices became a fundamental part of these early religions. Offering something valuable was seen as a way to negotiate with the divine. Sometimes the offering was food, other times a precious object, and in some cultures, even human sacrifice was considered necessary to appease the gods and ensure prosperity. People believed that this act of giving to the divine secured protection from disasters, abundant harvests, and the favor of the gods in times of war or conflict. These sacrifices, though performed for spiritual reasons, also played a deeply social role. In many societies, large sacrificial ceremonies brought the entire community together, reinforcing not only their religious faith but also social and political order. Leaders, often priests or shamans, not only guided people spiritually but also used these ceremonies as a way to strengthen their power and authority. It was in these occasions that relationships were forged between the human and the divine, as well as among different groups within a civilization. As societies evolved, so did religions. The gods ceased to be merely the natural forces that governed the rain, the sun, or the sea, and instead became symbols of something much greater: political power and authority. In Egypt, for example, pharaohs not only ruled as monarchs but were also considered living gods, responsible for maintaining cosmic order and ensuring the survival of their people. This idea of a divine ruler not only secured political stability, but also provided a divine justification for social hierarchy. Questioning the authority of a pharaoh was not just challenging a king, but defying the divine order of the universe. In other words, the power of the pharaohs was inextricably linked to the sacred, and any act of rebellion against them was seen as an act of rebellion against the gods. In this way, religion became a powerful tool not only for making sense of the world, but also for maintaining social and political control in the hands of a few. The relationship between the divine and the earthly continued to evolve as societies grew more complex. Priests and rulers increasingly merged into a single power, and religions became one of the main sources of authority, not just spiritual but also political. What began as an explanation to understand nature transformed into a structure that regulated human behavior, laws, and governance. Religions not only played a crucial role in explaining the world that humans could not understand, but they also functioned as a powerful tool for social control. From the dawn of the first civilizations, religious structures were so deeply intertwined with political structures that the difference between the divine and the earthly was practically indistinguishable. Religious and political authorities often merged, establishing a hierarchy in which divine will dictated the laws of society. In many cases, political leaders saw themselves as divine figures, or at least as direct intermediaries between the gods and human beings. A clear example of this phenomenon can be found in ancient Rome. There, the emperor was not only the political leader but was also considered a divine figure. This process, known as the imperial cult, allowed the emperor to be worshipped as a god, further consolidating his power over the people. The idea that the ruler was divine not only strengthened his political authority but also served as a tool for maintaining social control. The population accepted the emperor's authority not only because of his military or political power, but also because of the belief that he was a superior being, a messenger of the gods. Similarly, religions in other cultures played equivalent roles. In Egypt, for example, pharaohs were not just human rulers but were considered living gods. This belief was a fundamental pillar of social order, and any challenge to the pharaoh's authority was not only seen as an act of political rebellion, but also as an offense against the divine order. This fusion of the political and the religious became even more entrenched as civilizations expanded, creating systems of control deeply rooted in religion. As civilizations evolved and societies became more complex, religious power also expanded. During the Middle Ages in Europe, the Catholic Church became one of the most powerful institutions on the continent, not only in spiritual terms but also in political, economic, and social matters. The Church not only had the power to guide souls but also dictated laws, exerted significant control over education and the arts, and was deeply involved in the political decisions of European kingdoms. This blend of spiritual and secular power turned the Church into a dominant institution that not only guided people's religious lives but also their daily existence. A clear example of the control that the Catholic Church exerted over medieval society is the Inquisition, a dark period in European history that lasted for centuries and demonstrated how the Church used its power to control not only morality but also people's thoughts. During this time, religious dissent was not only rejected but also severely punished. Those who challenged the Church's authority or questioned interpretations of sacred scriptures faced terrible consequences. In many cases, individuals who opposed the Church, whether heretics, witches, or simply free thinkers, were subjected to gruesome tortures and, in some instances, death. Burning at the stake became one of the most common forms of punishment for those who dared to defy established religious teachings. This absolute control over thought and belief made the Church one of the most effective tools of social domination for centuries. It not only dictated society's morality but also controlled what people could think, say, and believe. For centuries, intellectual autonomy was suppressed, and any attempt to rationalize the nature of the world or human existence outside the precepts established by the Church was seen as an act of rebellion, an act that had to be eradicated at all costs. The fear of religious condemnation and severe repercussions was enough to keep most people in conformity. Religious beliefs, while deeply rooted in spirituality and fear of eternal punishment, also became a mechanism of mass social control. In this context, individuals who opposed the status quo were marginalized, and most people, fearing for their lives or suffering torture, complied with the rules imposed by the Church. However, despite the Church's absolute power at the time, voices began to emerge that questioned its teachings. In ancient Greece, philosophical figures such as Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle began challenging the mythological explanations that prevailed in their time. These thinkers proposed a radically different approach to understanding the world. Instead of accepting answers based on myths and religions, they advocated for the use of reason and observation as the only way to attain truth. Socrates in particular developed the method of meutics, a process through which he questioned and challenged popular beliefs to arrive at conclusions based on logic and deep reflection. The arrival of Platonic and Aristotelian philosophy introduced the possibility that the world could be understood not only through divine narratives but also through critical thinking and logic. These thinkers planted the seeds of a different way of seeing the world, one based on empirical observation and the development of knowledge through reason rather than relying solely on divine revelation. Although these philosophers did not immediately break with the religious structures of their time, their ideas were fundamental to the intellectual changes that would follow in the coming centuries. Despite efforts to suppress these ideas, rational thought began to gain ground. Over the centuries, thinkers, scientists, and philosophers continued to challenge the ideas established by religious institutions. This process of intellectual questioning would mark the beginning of a long conflict between religious power and free thought, which would continue into the modern era. The Great Transformation began to take shape in the 17th and 18th centuries, with the emergence of a groundbreaking intellectual movement that went down in history as the Enlightenment. This was a period in which humanity began to free itself from the chains that religion and superstition had imposed on its ability to think and understand the world. The Enlightenment promoted reason as the primary beacon for comprehending reality, placing observation, logic, and evidence as the most reliable tools for accessing true knowledge above divine revelation or established dogmas. The thinkers of the Enlightenment believed that humanity should emancipate itself from unfounded beliefs and religious authority, which had kept society in a state of ignorance for centuries. Philosophers such as René Descartes, John Locke, Voltaire, and Immanuel Kant became the leading figures of this movement that would change the course of history. Descartes, with his famous cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am, argued that reasoned doubt was the first step towards truth, challenging beliefs imposed by the Church and establishing reason as the foundation of all knowledge. Locke, for his part, proposed a vision of humanity based on experience and individual reason, suggesting that humans are born with a blank slate and that knowledge is acquired through interaction with the world and rational reflection. This period represented a true revolution in thought. Theology and supernatural explanations were deeply questioned, and rational answers to humanity's great questions began to gain ground. The Church, which had been the supreme authority in explaining the mysteries of the universe, began to see its power fade in the face of reason and scientific thought. Key figures such as Voltaire not only criticized religious dogmas, but also advocated for freedom of thought and the separation of church and state. Voltaire also ridiculed popular superstitions, which were seen as obstacles to human progress. The rise of reason was also reflected in the changing perception of knowledge itself, whereas in previous eras people had to rely on faith to understand the world. Enlightenment thinkers believed that only through empirical evidence and the scientific method could a true and objective understanding of reality be achieved. The brilliant minds of the time dedicated themselves to challenging preconceived notions about the universe and humanity, seeking answers that could be verified through experience and experimentation. A crucial advancement of this period was the scientific revolution, a phenomenon that made observation and experimentation the cornerstone of human knowledge. Figures such as Galileo Galilei and Johannes Kepler made fundamental discoveries about the cosmos that challenged dominant religious teachings. Galileo, with his telescopic observations, revealed that planets revolved around the sun, an idea that directly contradicted the geocentric view held by the Church, which had defended the belief that the Earth was the center of the universe. This discovery not only changed our understanding of the cosmos but also paved the way for science based on direct observation and empirical evidence. The rupture between science and religion began to solidify with even deeper advances. Isaac Newton, whose laws of motion and universal gravitation transformed physics, demonstrated that natural phenomena could be understood through the laws of nature, without the need to resort to divine or supernatural explanations. These advances contributed to a worldview founded on rationality, the scientific method, and direct observation elements that stripped religion of its explanatory power over the universe. However, the true earthquake in human understanding of life came with Charles Darwin's theories. In the mid-19th century, Darwin presented his theory of evolution by natural selection. The idea that all species, including humans, had evolved over millions of years through natural processes directly challenged traditional religious beliefs about the creation of the world and the origin of life. Darwin not only questioned biblical teachings on creationism but also provided a coherent explanation of biodiversity and the development of species based on evidence gathered during his voyage on the HMS Beagle. Darwin's theory, far from being immediately rejected, served as a catalyst for an even deeper transformation in how humans understood their place in the universe. The notion of a creator God and a divine plan began to be replaced by the understanding that life on Earth had emerged accidentally and that the universe followed rules that did not require the intervention of a deity. This was a devastating blow to traditional religious teachings and marked the beginning of a process that, to this day, continues to challenge beliefs about the origin of life and humanity's role in the cosmos. The Enlightenment and the scientific revolution transformed the way humans understood the world and their place in it. Through reason and the scientific method, humanity began to comprehend the universe more accurately and in greater detail than ever before. Religion, which had dominated human thought for millennia, began to give way to a more rational and empirical vision of the world. Although religious beliefs did not disappear immediately, the 18th century marked the beginning of a profound transformation that would lead to scientific and philosophical developments that would forever change human history. This was a turning point. Humanity finally began to understand that it was not necessary to resort to myths or supernatural explanations to unravel the mysteries of nature. Rational thought and scientific knowledge became the primary tools for understanding the world, leaving behind centuries of obscurantism and superstition. This paradigm shift remains one of the most transcendental achievements in human history. Religion, which for centuries had been the central pillar upon which human morality was built, began to be viewed with a new critical perspective as humanity advanced in its understanding of the world. Sacred scriptures, which had been considered infallible and immutable, started to undergo deeper scrutiny. Texts such as the Bible, the Quran, and other holy books have been interpreted in various ways throughout history, and many of their passages have been used to justify practices that today are considered morally unacceptable, such as violence, discrimination, and oppression. In the case of the Bible, for example, there are numerous accounts in which God is described as ordering or permitting violence, such as in the holy wars of the Old Testament, where Israel's enemies are mercilessly destroyed. Passages from the Quran have also been cited in later periods to justify acts of violence in the name of religion, including jihad. Furthermore, these sacred texts were historically used to justify slavery, racial discrimination, and the subjugation of women. In societies where religion was intrinsically linked to power, these texts were interpreted in ways that reinforced hierarchical structures and social control, creating the impression that religious institutions not only validated but even promoted profoundly unjust practices. This duality between preaching love, peace, and compassion, and the presence of elements in sacred texts that justify violence and oppression, has generated great ethical controversy. Is it morally acceptable for a religion that presents itself as a message of peace, love, and redemption to also contain teachings that can be interpreted to justify violence? How is it possible that a God described as benevolent and just allows such atrocities to occur in his name? These questions are fundamental when addressing the role of religion in human morality, especially in the context of modern times, where ethical thinking has evolved considerably. Throughout history, and especially with the rise of modern scientific thought, religious morality has been more questioned than ever. Questions about the existence of a just God, who is said to be omnipotent and benevolent in the face of human suffering and the existence of natural disasters, have become increasingly difficult to answer coherently within the framework of religious traditions. The concept of an omniscient and omnibenevolent God conflicts with the reality of a world where wars, extreme poverty, diseases, and tragedies that seem beyond human control exist. If divine morality is the ultimate source of ethics, then why does this deity allow so much unjustified suffering? This dilemma has been addressed by philosophers and theologians for centuries and remains a central issue in debates on religion and ethics. Contemporary existentialist and atheist philosophers, such as Jean-Paul Sartre and Friedrich Nietzsche, have argued that human morality does not need to be grounded in a deity or a system of religious beliefs. According to them, humans are capable of defining what is good and what is bad autonomously, through reason, empathy, and an understanding of the consequences of their actions. For Nietzsche, religion, especially Christianity, had in many cases devalued human life and its creative capacities, reducing people's moral potential by focusing too much on submission to a divine will and the promise of an afterlife beyond death. Moreover, the social impact of religious morality has had profoundly negative consequences throughout history. The Church, on many occasions, used its power to impose norms that kept large segments of the population in conditions of inequality and subjugation. The subjugation of women is perhaps one of the most evident examples. For centuries, women were viewed within religions as subordinate to men, with few rights in key areas of social and political life. Even within the Bible, women are often described in an inferior manner, with passages legitimizing their subordination. such as in the letters of St. Paul, where it is stated that women must be submissive to their husbands. These interpretations of sacred texts serve to justify discrimination and the denial of rights to women, and even to broader groups such as non-white individuals or slaves. On the other hand, the concept of original sin, present in many religions, creates a narrative of guilt and condemnation that affects the psyche of individuals, particularly those who do not conform to the norms dictated by religious institutions. The notion that human beings are inherently evil and need the intervention of a divine power to attain salvation generates a morality based on fear and guilt rather than freedom and moral autonomy. As humanity has advanced in its understanding of the world and itself, a deeper moral dilemma has emerged regarding the role of religion in society. If religions have been used as justification for violence, oppression, and discrimination, should we still see them as a reliable source of morality? The growing religious plurality and globalization have also contributed to questioning any religion's claims of possessing absolute truth. Is it possible that morality can be constructed in a more inclusive way, free from the contradictions that arise from religious teachings? Over time, many religious teachings have been interpreted in different ways and have evolved. However, the challenge for religion in modern times remains the same. How can an institution that promotes peace and love justify, in the name of a benevolent deity, the existence of injustice, suffering, and violence in the world? This is a question that arises not only in the philosophical realm, but is also at the heart of many contemporary social, political, and ethical debates. The search for an ethics that transcends religious teachings based on reason, empathy, and the common good has led humanity to rethink what it means to live morally. Today, many people choose a secular morality that does not depend on dogmas or divine entities, but is based on the principles of justice, equality, and respect for human rights. However, despite progress, religion remains a powerful force that deeply influences the morality and social behavior of many people, making the discussion on religious ethics a central issue in modern times. Today, we find ourselves in a radically different world from centuries past, where science, reason, and empathy have displaced many of the answers that religion once provided. What was once considered mysterious and divine can now be explained, understood, and in many cases even controlled thanks to advances in human knowledge. Religion, which originally served as a fundamental tool for survival and for making sense of inexplicable phenomena, has largely been replaced by science and knowledge based on observation and experience. In ancient societies, natural phenomena such as eclipses, storms, or the birth of a new star were not only feared but also interpreted through myths and religious narratives. Religion was the path to obtaining answers, especially in a world where tools for knowledge either did not exist or were minimal. However, today, we live in a scientific world where concepts like the Big Bang, the theory of evolution, and the laws of physics allow us to understand the universe in ways that, in ancient times, could only be imagined in our wildest dreams. We have unraveled cosmic secrets that were once unimaginable to our ancestors. From the smallest structure of the atom to the vastness of the known universe, science has transformed our vision of the world and has allowed humanity to develop a deep understanding of nature. One of the most remarkable fields of this progress has been medicine. Modern medicine has revolutionized the way we live, and perhaps more importantly, has significantly increased our life expectancy and improved our quality of life. Diseases that were once considered divine curses or punishments from the gods, such as the plague or smallpox, have become treatable thanks to advances in medical research. Antibiotics, vaccines, and complex surgeries have helped save millions of lives and alleviate human suffering in ways our ancestors could never have imagined. Additionally, technology has provided tools that have enabled humanity to solve practical problems, improve communication, and connect the world in ways we never thought possible. But perhaps one of humanity's greatest achievements in modern times has been the emergence of empathy as a fundamental principle for ethical and social decision-making. As science has progressed, so has humanity's collective awareness of the importance of solidarity and compassion. We no longer need to rely on religious dogmas to define what is right or wrong. Empathy, the ability to understand and sympathize with the suffering of others, has taken the place of ancient moral rules imposed by religions. Today, laws and social norms are based on principles such as equality, justice, and freedom. Human rights have become the foundation on which many political and ethical decisions that govern our societies are built. Individual freedom, tolerance, and acceptance are now key principles guiding our collective actions. Gender equality, minority rights, the fight against racial discrimination, and environmental protection are central aspects of modern debates, grounded in empathy and the pursuit of a more just and equitable world. Humanity has begun to understand that morality should not be tied to obedience to a divine being, but should emerge from mutual understanding, from the ability to put ourselves in each other's shoes, and from building a world where collective well-being is the highest priority. This shift towards a moral system based on empathy and reason has allowed humanity to move towards an era where scientific knowledge and ethical responsibility go hand in hand. We no longer need a divine figure to set the boundaries of right and wrong. The answers to the deepest philosophical questions, such as the meaning of life or the origin of the universe, can be sought through observation and critical reasoning without resorting to mythological or supernatural explanations. Looking to the future, humanity seems to be moving towards building a world without the need for ancient religions. A world where science, instead of being seen as a threat to faith, is recognized as a powerful tool for understanding our place in the universe and improving our lives. In this future, empathy will be the guiding principle that leads our decisions and allows us to face the global challenges we encounter as a species. Humanity has begun to free itself from the old beliefs that divided us, and in doing so, has created a new form of coexistence based on reason, compassion, and mutual respect. It is possible that religion, as we knew it in ancient times, may not have a central place in this future, but the universal values it promoted, such as compassion and respect, for life remain relevant. What has changed is the way we understand and apply these principles. Today, humanity faces global challenges that require large-scale cooperation and understanding, from climate change to economic inequality. And to face them, we need a value system based on reason, mutual respect, and compassion, not on dogmas or beliefs that divide us. Science gives us the tools to understand and transform the world, and empathy gives us the drive to build a fairer future for everyone. Thus, a future without religion does not mean a future without values, but rather a future in which values arise from our ability to understand one another and seek the common good through reason and mutual understanding. The history of religion is a history of transformation, of power struggles, and of the evolution of human thought. From its humble beginnings as a way to explain the world to its transformation into a tool of control, religion has been a constant in human history, but humanity has grown. We have left behind ancient myths and continue forward guided by reason, science, and empathy. And in doing so, we have found new ways to understand our world, our morality, and our place in the universe. The history of religion is not a story of failure, but of change. Its legacy is a call to question, reflect, and move forward without fear. And that is the true challenge of the 21st century, to keep questioning, keep learning, and keep advancing. And so we reach the end of this journey through the history of religion, science, and human morality. We have explored how, over time, humanity has sought answers to the unknown, and how those answers have evolved from ancient myths to scientific advances and modern ethical understanding. Now more than ever, it is time to reflect on the future. A future where reason, empathy, and knowledge will guide our decisions and allow us to build a more just, inclusive, and understanding world. But for this to be possible, we must all be part of the change. If this video made you think, I invite you to subscribe, like, and share it with those who are also interested in understanding how we got here and where we are going. Also, leave us your comments. What do you think about a future without religion? Do you believe science and empathy are the keys to a better world? I would love to read your opinion. See you in the next video, where we will continue exploring the great topics that define our existence. See you soon.